First contact protocols state we should approach with caution. Ambassador Crix gurgled through his translation device, his mucus-covered skin glistening under Earth's autumn sun. These humans could be dangerous. With all due respect, Ambassador his aide Mira chimed in, her bioluminescent antennae twitching nervously. Our scans show they're barely a Class 3 civilization. They haven't even colonized their own solar system yet. The massive silver diplomatic vessel descended through Earth's atmosphere, its cloaking field rippling like heat waves on a summer day. Below, the United Nations complex in New York sprawled across the landscape, a testament to humanity's stumbling attempts at global cooperation. Remember, Crix warned his delegation, no sudden movements. According to our preliminary studies, humans are easily startled and may resort to violence when threatened. The ship touched down on the specially prepared landing pad, where a small welcoming committee waited. At the front stood Jack Thompson, Earth's newly appointed Xenodiplomatic liaison, wearing his best suit and what he hoped was a non-threatening smile. Just don't show any teeth, his assistant had warned him that morning. We don't want them thinking we're aggressive. The ship's entry ramp extended with a soft hiss, and Ambassador Crix emerged, followed by his delegation. Jack immediately noted their diverse anatomies. Some were clearly aquatic, others insectoid, and a few seemed to defy traditional classification or classification altogether. "Welcome to Earth," Jack called out, keeping his lips carefully closed over his teeth. "We are honored by your presence and look forward to establishing peaceful relations between our worlds." Crix's translator burbled for a moment before he responded. "We thank you for your welcome, Representative Thompson. The Galactic Coalition is pleased to make your acquaintance." Everything was going smoothly until they reached the refreshment table. Jack watched in horror as Linda from catering demonstrated how to eat a sandwich. The alien delegation recoiled in unified disgust as she casually tore through the bread with her omnivorous teeth, digestive enzymes breaking down multiple types of organic matter simultaneously. "By the 7 moons," Mira whispered, her antennae now lying flat against her head. "They don't just consume plant matter, they consume everything. At the same time." "Please," Jack tried to explain. "It's just a chicken sandwich." "You mean you processed another species into small pieces, combined it with plant matter, and now you're dissolving it with acids inside your body?" Crix's natural coloring had shifted from a pleasant blue to a sickly green. "Well, when you put it that way," Jack set down his own sandwich, suddenly very aware of how it might look to a species that absorbed nutrients through their skin. The situation deteriorated further during the facility tour. Dr. Patricia Wu was explaining human medical advances when she casually mentioned organ transplants. "You remove organs from your dead to sustain your living." A crystalline being in the delegation chimed in frequencies that suggested deep disturbance. "You cannibalize your own kind." No, Jack jumped in. "It's voluntary. People choose to donate their organs to help others live. They choose to be harvested." Crix's skin was now cycling through various shades of distress. "Your species willingly participates in post-mortem resource distribution." "Maybe we should move on to the cultural exhibition," Jack suggested weakly, making a mental note to avoid the planned documentary about human history. Something told him the aliens weren't ready to learn about warfare just yet. As they walked through the halls, Jack couldn't help but notice how the delegation huddled closer together, their various sensory organs trained on the humans with newfound wariness. He'd have to work harder to convince them that humanity wasn't a threat to galactic peace. Though watching Linda devour another sandwich in the distance, he had to admit from a certain angle, humans could seem pretty terrifying. The Galactic Coalition's research vessel Empirical Truth hung in low Earth orbit like a cosmic jellyfish, its transparent research pods pulsing with bioluminescent activity. Inside one of these pods, Chief Xenoarchaeologist Vesna peered at her holographic displays with all 4 of her eyes, her crystalline form refracting light across the lab's curved walls. "This can't be right," she chimed, the frequencies of her voice expressing deep concern. "Dr. Rodriguez, could you verify these findings?" Dr. Maya Rodriguez floated over in the zero-gravity environment, her dark curls forming a wild halo around her head. As Earth's leading paleoanthropologist, she'd been assigned to assist the alien scientists in understanding human evolution. So far, it had been an exercise in cultural confusion. "What seems to be the problem?" Maya asked, grabbing a handrail to stabilize herself. According to these genetic records, your species Vesna's crystalline structure flickered with distress. You weren't the only intelligent bipedal primates on your planet. Oh, you mean our evolutionary cousins? Yes, there were several species of hominids, Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo erectus. And they're all gone. Vesna's tone shifted to something between accusation and horror. Every single one. Maya blinked. Well, yes, they went extinct through natural selection and environmental pressures. Though we did interbreed with some of them, many modern humans have Neanderthal DNA. The lab erupted in chaos. The other alien researchers began chattering in their various native languages, their universal translators struggling to keep up with their agitated communications. You absorbed their genetic material, a gaseous being named Puff condensed in shock. You integrated their biological advantages into your own species. That's a very dramatic way of putting it, Maya said. It was more like prehistoric dating. Dating Vesna's crystal structure now pulsed with a concerning red hue. Dr. Rodriguez, every other sentient species we've encountered evolved alongside their genetic relatives. The Artaxians still share their homeworld with 3 other intelligent species. The Zrelak actually formed a symbiotic government with their evolutionary cousins. And we're very happy for them, Maya replied diplomatically. But evolution doesn't always work that way. Sometimes species go extinct. All of them. Vesna projected a holographic timeline of Earth's history. Every single intelligent species except yours. The statistical probability of that happening naturally is. She broke off as new data scrolled across her displays. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. You have weapons made from their bones. You wore their skins. You occupied their dwellings after they disappeared. Those were different times, Maya protested. We were all just trying to survive. By eliminating all competition, Puff had now turned a worrying shade of puce. By systematically replacing every other intelligent species until only humans remained. That's not what happened. Maya grabbed a tablet, pulling up archaeological data. Look, we have extensive evidence of climate change, resource competition, natural disasters. Yes, Vesna interrupted. Disasters that somehow only your species survived. How? Convenient. The word hung in the air like an accusation. I should inform Ambassador Crix immediately, Vesna decided, her crystal structure now pulsing with urgent patterns. This changes everything about our first contact protocols. Don't you think you're overreacting? Maya called after her. But Vesna had already crystallized into her travel form and was chiming her way toward the communication hub. Left alone with the other researchers, who were now keeping a noticeable distance from her, Maya sighed and pulled up her own communication device. Jack, we may have a problem. How do you feel about explaining human evolution to a bunch of aliens who think we're secret species-ending supervillains? The silence on the other end of the line was not encouraging. In retrospect, Maya thought, maybe they should have led with the cute animal domestication stories instead of the whole survival of the fittest thing. Though somehow, she suspected that explaining how humans had selectively bred other species to suit their needs might not help their case either. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Coalition's First Contact Committee was not going well. The holographic chamber aboard their flagship was filled with representatives from 50 different species, all simultaneously trying to express their concern about humanity. The result looked like a circus designed by someone who'd had too much caffeine and access to a genetic engineering lab. Ambassador Crix stood at the center, his skin now a mottled pattern of anxiety-induced colors. Order. Please, everyone, maintain order. Their genetic vampires shouted a representative from the silicon-based crystalline confederation, their facets flashing with alarm patterns. More like evolutionary predators hummed a representative of the Hive Collective, their swarm formation spelling out worried emoji-like patterns. Security Chief Dawn, a massive creature who looked like someone had successfully crossbred a rhinoceros with a sequoia tree, stomped forward. The solution is simple. We quarantine the entire system. No species with their track record should be allowed into the wider galaxy. Back on Earth, Jack Thompson was having an equally challenging time in the UN Security Council meeting. What do you mean they think we committed genocide against other human species? The French representative demanded. That's absurd. We weren't even Homo sapiens then. Try explaining that to a species that reproduces by binary fission, Jack muttered. They think we absorbed our competitors on purpose. Maya Rodriguez, watching from the sideline, raised her hand. Actually, I might have accidentally made things worse. They found out about our domestication of wolves. The room grew silent. We took one of the planet's apex predators, Maya continued, wincing, selectively bred them over thousands of years, and turned them into creatures that would die to protect us. The Coalition's evolutionary ethicists are not handling it well. On the main screen, footage from the Coalition's emergency meeting continued to play. An alien that looked like a sentient cloud was presenting a PowerPoint presentation titled Humanity: A Threat Assessment. As you can see, the cloud buzzed. They don't just eliminate competing species, they reshape surviving ones to serve their needs. They call these altered beings pets and livestock. The presentation showed pictures of wolves next to chihuahuas. Mother of moons, gasped one of the delegates. What did they do to that poor predator? It gets worse, the cloud continued. They have these ritualistic gatherings called dog shows where they parade their modified creatures for entertainment. Back in the UN chamber, Jack was trying to salvage the situation via video conference with Ambassador Criggs. Look, he said, you're misinterpreting our entire history. We didn't systematically eliminate anyone. Well, not on purpose, usually. Then explained this. Criggs's translator squawked as he held up a human history book. Your own records show you conducting something called agriculture. You deliberately select which plants live or die based on their usefulness to you. That's called farming. Everyone farms. We photosynthesize responsibly, shot back a plant-based delegate. The situation deteriorated further when someone in the Coalition discovered human medical testing protocols. They experiment on other species to advance their own medical knowledge, Security Chief Dawn announced. And they call these facilities laboratories, which roughly translates in their language to torture chamber for science. That's not even remotely accurate, Maya protested. They admit it. Dawn pointed at her accusingly with one of his branch-like appendages. Meanwhile, a junior alien researcher had discovered human science fiction. They don't just practice species modification, they fantasize about it. Look at this documentary called Jurassic Park. That's not a documentary, Jack tried to explain. It's entertainment. They find the idea of reviving extinct species for entertainment. Entertaining the researchers' tentacles went limp with horror. In orbit, Vesna was completing her analysis of human internet content. According to their own information network, she reported, they regularly engage in something called viral videos, where they share footage of their modified wolf servants doing tricks. They call these beings good boys and good girls, clearly some form of subjugation reinforcement. Those are dog videos. Maya was practically tearing her hair out. They're cute. They find subjugation cute. Vesna's crystal structure clouded with distress. This is worse than we thought. As the misunderstandings piled up, Jack couldn't help but wonder if first contact would have gone better if humans had just stuck to talking about the weather. Though knowing humanity's history with climate change, that probably wouldn't have helped either. The vote to quarantine Earth passed with what the Galactic Coalition called enthusiastic unanimity, which was a diplomatic way of saying that even the normally indecisive gaseous species had managed to solidify their opinion on the matter. Jack Thompson stood before the Coalition's Emergency Council, trying one last time to prevent the isolation of humanity from the galactic community. The chamber, designed to accommodate all known forms of sentient life, looked like a cross between the United Nations, an aquarium, and a greenhouse. Let me get this straight, he said, pinching the bridge of his nose. You're quarantining us because you think we're too dangerous to join galactic society. Precisely, Security Chief Dawn rumbled, his bark-like exterior bristling with righteous satisfaction. Until humanity can prove it won't. What's the term? Ah yes, pull a Neanderthal on the galaxy. That's not even a real phrase, Maya protested from her position in the witness stand, which was actually a containment field the Coalition had insisted on after discovering she had both the Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA. You literally just made that up. Ambassador Criggs raised a webbed appendage for silence. The evidence is quite clear. Your species has a pattern of, shall we say, aggressive evolutionary success. On the massive display screen behind them, Someone had helpfully compiled a timeline of human history that made it look like humanity had systematically planned every major extinction event since the Pleistocene. Someone had even added ominous red highlighting and dramatic transition effects. Is that the PowerPoint of Doom? Jack whispered to Maya. Apparently the Coalition has a department of menacing presentations, she whispered back. They're very proud of their graphic design team. If I may, Jack addressed the council, I'd like to present some evidence in humanity's defense. Proceed, Creaks gurgled cautiously. But please refrain from showing any more of your cute animal videos. The therapy bills from the last presentation are still being processed. Jack pulled up his own presentation. First, I'd like to point out that humans are not the unstoppable predators you seem to think we are. We're actually quite fragile. He showed a picture of a human sneezing. See? We can be incapacitated by microscopic particles. The council members shifted uncomfortably. You mean you can be defeated by particles so small you can't even hunt them properly after being composed entirely of visible light? How resourceful. No, that's not. Look, we also get tired easily. Jack showed a picture of someone napping. We have to become temporarily unconscious every day just to function. They practice daily death rituals, muttered one of the council members, taking notes. Fascinating and disturbing. Maya decided to try a different approach. We're also very social creatures. We form strong bonds with others, including different species. She showed a heartwarming photo of a child hugging a dog. The chamber erupted in chaos. Look at how it restrains, that modified wolf, Dawn bellowed. The poor creature has been genetically engineered to accept such domination. It's a hug, Maya shouted over the uproar. It's affection. They've weaponized affection, Vesna chimed grimly from her crystal podium. Just as they weaponized wolves, wheat, and every other species they encountered. In desperation, Jack tried one last tactic. We also make mistakes. Lots of them. Look at this compilation of humans falling down. The footage of people slipping on ice and walking into glass doors played while the council watched in silent horror. They deliberately document their hunting failures, whispered a hive mind representative, presumably to study and improve their techniques. Their persistence is remarkable, added another council member. Even when gravity defeats them, they rise again, and again, and again. Like some kind of evolutionary Terminator, Dawn concluded gravely. Jack looked at Maya. Maya looked at Jack. Both of them wondered if showing the Fail Army compilation had actually made things worse. The quarantine stands, Crix announced. For the safety of all species in the galaxy, Earth will be isolated until humanity can prove it has moved past its predatory tendencies. How are we supposed to prove that if you don't let us interact with anyone? Jack demanded. Perhaps you could start by explaining why your species keeps making movies about hunting aliens, suggested a council member. Those are just stories, Maya protested. Ah, Vesna chimed ominously. So you're rehearsing? As the council session ended and the quarantine protocols were initiated, Jack couldn't help but think that somewhere, somehow, Darwin was probably having a good laugh about all this. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, the Coalition's mandatory pre-quarantine genetic survey. The irony was not lost on Maya Rodriguez as she stared at the results scrolling across her tablet. You have got to be kidding me, she muttered. Before activating the emergency channel to the Coalition Council, Ambassador Creaks, we need to talk. And you might want to bring Vesna and Security Chief Dawn. They're going to want to see this. An hour later, the hastily assembled group stared at the holographic display in the ship's main laboratory. Jack Thompson tried not to look too smug. So he said carefully, would anyone like to explain why the Artaxians show genetic markers from 3 now extinct branch species of their evolutionary tree? Crix's skin had taken on a particularly interesting shade of embarrassed purple. That's different. Those species died out naturally due to environmental pressures and resource competition. You mean exactly like what happened on Earth? Maya asked innocently. Vesna's crystalline form flickered with discomfort. But the Zrelak formed a peaceful coalition with their genetic relatives. After Jack noted, reading from the genetic report, absorbing the traits they found most useful through selective breeding over thousands of years, which sounds suspiciously familiar, That was a natural process of genetic optimization, Dawn protested, his bark-like exterior crackling with agitation. Oh really? Maya pulled up another set of data. Then perhaps you'd like to explain these results from your own species, Chief Dawn. Because according to this, your ancestors apparently optimized themselves right past 3 other sentient tree-based species. The massive security chief suddenly became very interested in examining his root-like appendages. And let's talk about the hive collective, Jack continued, warming to his theme. Did you know there used to be 6 separate hive species before they? What was the phrase you used? Ah yes, peacefully integrated their genetic advantages. That was consensual genetic merging. A hive representative buzzed defensively. Just like Neanderthal interbreeding, Maya pointed out. Funny how perspective changes things, isn't it? Crick slumped in his hover chair, his webbed hands covering his face. Are you suggesting that every species in the coalition survived their own evolutionary Hunger Games? Jack finished. Pretty much. Turns out we're not so different after all. We're just the only ones honest enough to admit it. Although, Maya added quickly, seeing several council members beginning to bristle, we could probably work on our presentation, starting with removing all movies featuring alien invasions from our public databases. And maybe, Jack suggested, we could all agree that evolution is complicated, survival is messy, and judging a species by their prehistoric past isn't the best way to conduct diplomatic relations. The council chamber erupted in overlapping conversations, translations, and what sounded suspiciously like embarrassed coughing from several different respiratory systems. Perhaps Vesna chimed thoughtfully, her crystal structure showing patterns of scientific curiosity rather than alarm. For the first time in weeks, we could establish a joint research project to study the parallel evolution of sentient species across the galaxy. As long as we're all agreeing not to hold ancient history against each other, Dawn rumbled, still not making eye contact with anyone. We could call it the Galactic Archaeological Conference, Maya suggested. A place to share our stories and learn from each other's past. And maybe, Jack added with a slight smile, we could start with something simple, like comparing notes on domestication. I bet every species has some interesting stories about their first attempts at agriculture. The collective wince that ran through the council suggested he might be right. Did we mention a plant-based delegate admitted reluctantly that our first attempts at responsible photosynthesis actually involved completely restructuring several competing species' chlorophyll production? And our early hive optimization had a few unfortunate incidents with rival swarms, added the hive representative. See, Jack spread his hands. We're all evolutionary survivors here. Some of us just kept better records of the awkward parts. The first annual Galactic Archaeological Conference was held 6 months later on a neutral space station, carefully designed to accommodate everything from photosynthetic beings to silicon-based life forms. The main hall looked like someone had combined a natural history museum with a planetary biodome, and then added a disco ball for good measure. I still can't believe we pulled this off, Jack whispered to Maya as they watched Ambassador Crix give the opening speech. Distinguished colleagues, Crix gurgled into the universal translator, his skin now a confident shade of diplomatic blue. We gather here today to share our species' histories, learn from our collective past, and hopefully stop accidentally accusing each other of evolutionary genocide. The laughter that rippled through the crowd came in various forms, from crystalline chiming to subsonic rumbles. Though I must admit, Crix continued, humanity did us all a favor by being so thoroughly documented in their development. Their historical records have helped many species come to terms with their own evolutionary skeletons in the closet. Speaking of skeletons, Maya muttered, wait until they see the paleontology presentation. The conference had turned out to be a surprising success. The Artaxians had an entire symposium on genetic integration through the ages. It's not just humans who did it. The Hive Collective presented a fascinating paper on swarm optimization, a historic overview of definitely consensual merging. Even Security Chief Dawn had gotten into the spirit, giving a widely attended lecture on ancient arboreal competition, why we don't talk about the fourth branch species. The best part, Jack said, watching a group of silicon-based beings comparing notes with a gaseous collective, is that everyone's finally stopped treating humans like we're going to suddenly go full prehistoric predator on the galaxy. Well, Maya replied with a grin. The therapy sessions for the alien scientists who watched too many pet videos probably helped. The conference had also led to some unexpected cultural exchange. The Crystalline Confederation had become oddly fascinated with human stand-up comedy, though they still had trouble understanding why humans would deliberately fail at things for entertainment. The Hive Collective had developed an appreciation for human social media, recognizing it as a primitive form of collective consciousness. They particularly enjoyed cat videos, which they analyzed as examples of another species successfully domesticating humanity. "By the way," Jack said, checking his tablet, "have you seen the latest update from the Coalition Xenobiology Department? Apparently they've finally finished their comprehensive study of Earth's biosphere." Oh, Maya raised an eyebrow. "And what's the verdict?" "Turns out we're not the scariest thing on the planet after all. They're absolutely terrified of ducks." Ducks. Apparently, the combination of aerial, aquatic and terrestrial capabilities, plus their behavioral patterns, marks them as, and I quote, "an evolutionary horror that somehow achieved optimization in all domains while maintaining an inexplicably cute exterior." Maya burst out laughing. "So all this time we were worried about them judging us, and they end up being more scared of waterfowl." The Coalition's Threat Assessment Department is currently debating whether ducks should be classified as biological superweapons, Jack confirmed. They're particularly concerned about the head-bobbing thing. As they watched the various species mingling, sharing stories, and occasionally apologizing for historical misunderstandings, Maya couldn't help but smile. "You know what the real irony is," she said. "In trying to prove we weren't dangerous evolutionary predators, we ended up helping every species come to terms with their own predatory pasts." "True," Jack agreed. "Though I still think we should wait a while before introducing them to platypuses. Some truths about Earth's wildlife might be too much for the galaxy to handle just yet." In the end, humanity's position in the galactic community was secured not by hiding their evolutionary history, but by helping others acknowledge theirs. Though as a precaution, the Coalition did pass one unanimous resolution. No species was allowed to attempt duck domestication without filing extensive paperwork first. Some evolutionary experiments, they decided, were better left in the past.